Hello everyone, my name is John Paul Dowling and I'm the Head of Department of Communication Design at the National College of Art and Design in Dublin. Welcome to this open day presentation that I'll be narrating. I will take you through samples of work across the department. I will talk a little bit about what we were expecting from you guys in terms of portfolios and applications towards the end of this presentation. There'll also be some accompanying links. So there's a lot of moving image work that I will talk about, but just leave it up still on screen. And then I will provide the links for you along with this as it's uploaded, so you can view those excellent pieces of moving image work that would make this presentation far too long if I was to include them in it. But I would urge everyone, whether you intend on applying for common entry, for graphic design, for moving image, or for illustration, to view those pieces of work as well, those links that I will put online. So, the Department of Communication Design in NCAD sits within the School of Design. The Department of Communication Design is one of the largest departments across NCAD. We have 3 undergraduate programs: graphic design, moving image design, and illustration, which I will talk about today. Just to give you that reminder, the NCAD, the CAO codes for your routes of entry into NCAD, you have 3 routes of entry should your goal be to study within the Department of Communication Design. The first route of entry, which a lot of students would choose, is AD 101, which is first year art and design common entry. It means you get a place in NCAD, you come into first year, and throughout your time and experience in first year, you make decisions what you would like to go on and study, and then you move into those disciplines towards the end of your first year, whether that is graphic design, moving image, or illustration, or painting, or print, or sculpture, or product design, or fashion, whatever that may be. Some direct entry routes for our department specifically, and they exist across the School of Design, but specifically for communication design. AD 102 is if you're interested in graphic design and moving image, you can secure a place on the program in second year straight away. Or AD 2017 for illustration, same deal. You will still go into first year and have the common entry experience, the same as students who come in this first route, but you will be guaranteed a place in these disciplines in the second year of study. You could, I must say as well, you can apply for all 3. So you could hedge your bets and apply for all 3. So I'm going to talk about graphic design first. Graphic design is a problem identifying and solving practice which has transcended its role as a facilitator of commercial messaging to become an essential and universal tool for communicating the multidimensional experience of place, product, service, and/or personality in every imaginable context. What we're saying, or what we're telling you here, is that graphic design as a subject, as a discipline, as a profession, has traditionally aligned itself with commerciality. Whether that was selling newspapers or posters to sell, for opera seat tickets or shows, or to tell someone to turn left or to stop or go back, or to, an advertising campaign for Nike that exists on billboards and commercial advertising or television advertising. Traditionally the subject has aligned itself with commerce, making money for people, and it still does, but it's also transcended that and is in every kind of walk of life. Graphic design exists, and it works in spaces that are you wouldn't necessarily deem commercial, whether that's in cultural institutions, whether it's a wayfinding system within a city, how to navigate a subway. These are all things that graphic designers do. We take very complex things and we make them accessible and legible to an audience. Our work generally exists outside, and that's outside the studio. So it could be on the street, could be in a bookstore, could be in a department store. This is a piece of work from a student who wanted people to become more sympathetic to what it's like to be dyslexic. So this is a still from some moving advertisements that really played with the text and had people try and get people to empathize what it's like for someone who has a learning difference like dyslexia, and to empathize with them. This is similar from that project. We have a student here who, this is a poster that advertises a chat room that he built that exists on the dark web. There's the onion skin URL for that. to aid student protesters in Hong Kong that were protesting. They were called the Yellow Umbrellas, the name of the movement against the Chinese government. Chinese state surveillance, the banning of Google and these kind of things. Wikipedia are banned. It stops students getting information, activists, anyone getting information, but also stops them from communicating with each other on the surface web. But as you move down through the deep web, which kind of where banking, transactions, all those things happen in the background, and into the dark web, which really has associations with drug dealing and pornography, and it's got a real bad rep, but actually there's a lot that exists on the dark web that's really empowering. This student actually built the chat room and had student activists, use it. This was part of a project the student produced. So again, work that exists outside, work that's actually happening, real work, live things. We don't do pretend projects in our department. This student was interested in getting into set design, graphic design for film. So they were producing, pieces of work that almost are like kind of counterfeit, but to, reimagine spaces or retell stories of a time past through using graphic design to build these narratives. This is a student who was working on a project around the Palestinian diaspora, who recently just won a grant for $2,500 to put these plates into production. So this is a student working on ceramics. So these are non-traditional ways where maybe you might think graphic design might exist, but it's all about communication, engaging an audience. But we do the traditional stuff too, the more commercial stuff. We work with Powers Whiskey. This particular student, the project was to reimagine the labeling of Powers. So this student fell an oak tree, sanded it down, burnished it, inked it up, and printed the labels. So it's aesthetically beautiful, but it's also conceptually relevant. Powers Whiskey is aged in oak barrels. The aging process is denoted in wood by the rings going out around the tree. So she's told the story that it's aging in oak barrels through a print that all emanates from the Powers logo. So very clever kind of stuff. We have fantastic printing facilities in LCAD, the best in the country, up there, top 3 probably between Ireland and the UK. We've over 500 cases of lead type between wood, large wood type and very small metal type. Students are taught typography through this method, the old printing method, inking up, composing, printing. This is a project that's happened just a couple of weeks ago where the students were doing protest posters around the ceiling of the records for the mother and baby homes. This is important. What you'll see, a lot of what I'm going to talk about across all our disciplines are people, students, they're working with things that are happening in the real world around them. This is a book project. You're going to see, I'm hitting on a lot of typography because typography is very, very important for graphic design students. This student produced this book, which was around the War of Numbers, called The War of Numbers, which was, he was narrating arguments between mathematicians around different algorithms and theorems. He designs the entire book, he writes the entire book, he illustrates the book, he compiles the book. Everything is done to a professional standard. The book is printed, it's binded. We do a lot around kind of book design. It's a great tool to learn the full kind of journey of communication within a communication design context. Our students design their own typefaces. They don't just pull typefaces off the web. They do sometimes, but very good typefaces designed by very good designers, but they also learn how to design working typefaces themselves that can be installed on computers, that can be licensed and sold. When you think about it, typography is everywhere in your environment. Someone has to design that type. And depending on the type of typeface used, it adds a tone of voice to language. It helps the reader frame what is the content that's being told to me, that's being said, this information. Is it serious? Is it funny? Is it shouting? Is it whispering? Typography is a really powerful tool in a graphic designer's arsenal. There's a piece here. It's an interactive piece of typography that I'm not going to show here because the sound actually is playing really bad when I try and show stuff within the presentation. But I'm going to put all the links up to all of the stuff that I acknowledge as moving image work for you guys to view in your own time. This particular piece of work went on to win a lot of awards, some major international awards. It was not only a piece of beautiful book design, but then there was an interactive projection mapping that happened with the book in a gallery kind of setting. So depending on whether you leaned left or right, different projections happened. It was an argument that was happening in the book between Sigmund Freud and Dr. Klein. And as you read the book, if you started, you know, leaning towards Dr. Klein or Sigmund Freud's arguments, you would lean left or right as you read the book, and then it would change what was being projected onto the book based upon that. It's a piece of work. It's kind of a bonkers piece of work, but it's also fantastic. Piece of work. It had just won an award recently at the Institute of Designers Ireland. This student was investigating hairdressing in Ireland. Through a research, identified that people spend about females spend about 2,000 hours listening to their hairdresser speaking while getting their hair done. So this piece of work was actually produced where the student knitted actual hair that she collected from hairdressers, and then the typography was applied through bleaching that hair. So really nice piece of work, really, really clever. And you could see works like this. Sometimes I think for people new enough to graphic design, they kind of think, well, like, how would that exist? But you could see process like this. This could be a book cover. This could be an album cover. This could exist on a billboard, on an ad shell, on a poster. So, you know, how work is framed, you know, it's what comes maybe later in your educational experience. So BA Moving Image Design. This is going to be relatively quick because I'm going to show you the stills, but I implore you to go and look at the work that I am going to put links alongside the upload of this presentation, because there's some fantastic work here on display. The course ethos for Moving Image is really around stories and how we tell them. And that's at the core of human narrative. We exist in a world where the screen holds powerful cultural capital, responding to developments in an ever-changing landscape. This program of study offers a range of approaches at the nexus of traditional communication and the evolving world of digital media. The program provides a range of exciting and expressive ways to tell a story, communicate an idea, or to create an emotive response. This is one of our newer programs, Moving Image Design, where we deal with, you know, storytelling, motion graphics, motion design. It is by far the program that employers are telling us they want communication designers trained in. This is where the majority of jobs are within the creative industries at present. So we see it as a program that's going to grow and grow and grow. And it's certainly something that you should really kind of think about if you're interested in things moving on screen. So I will have links to these associated with this talk. This particular piece of work, when you go see it, it's all shot in camera. The student has used the freezing and unfreezing of ice to create a music video in collaboration with the Royal Academy of Music in Dublin, where they worked with a composer to create a music video for their work. The second piece that I'll put a link up for is this piece around death and dying, which was produced by a student and went on to win a Royal Society of Art award. This is very much kind of traditional animation, frame by frame animation, drawing, then composed on the computer, colored in Photoshop, brought together in Adobe After Effects, Adobe Premiere, with the sound done in Audition. This next piece is a real good example of a whole plethora of skill sets, from some stuff that's shot on camera and then filtered and treated in Adobe After Effects, to hand-drawn animation, some three-dimensional work done in Cinema 4D, all compiled in Final Cut Pro. So there's a whole host of programs, Audition for the sound, that have all come together, maybe 7-8 programs to produce this piece. This is another piece about ageism that went on to win a Royal Society of Art award. And this final clip here is a piece that a student produced, which is solely about editing, and they've pulled almost all of the content, although you'll see a girl in a red coat. He's filmed that himself. Everything else he's pulled from the internet. This is about you know, fake news, the rise of Donald Trump, Brexit, conspiracy theories. So the majority of the content comes from YouTube and is all mashed together to make a very, very interesting narrative, all set to some of George Orwell, who wrote 1984, some of his words on his deathbed about what he predicted for society. Fantastic piece of work this. So please make sure you go and look at all these links that are going to be posted with this talk. BA Illustration. Our course ethos is that we see illustration as a powerful visual language which defies boundaries and extends across all art and design disciplines. Traditionally, it was mainly associated with bringing words to life in the publishing industries and in advertising campaigns. However, through the explosion of new technologies and media, illustration has never enjoyed such currency and is now encountered in every aspect of our daily lives. Illustration starts with drawing. We need good drawers, people who are good at drawing, to go on to become good illustrators. But drawing is only the starting point. An illustrator, if you look back to the etymological origins of the words, is an illuminator, someone who illuminates, brings light to a subject, makes people understand. These sketchbook drawings are from a student reportage illustration project where they worked as visual journalists. They had to respond to the 2020 government program for government and look at some of the thematics within that program for government. Things like transport, housing, health, the economy. This student was looking at Houston Station, Dublin, looking at transport, the vacancy of the space, the decision to draw the big high ceilings with the empty floors, highlighting now that in times of COVID, the transport has been minimized so much as our movements are restricted. So this student is producing drawings like a journalist would write words. So it's investigative. It's interested in what's happening outside. It's telling a story. It's helping the viewer to understand what is happening, but in a way that's emotive. That's not a photograph. That's not set up. It's the person on the ground there experiencing it and drawing it in a way that's appropriate to the mood of the place. Our students work with publishing houses. This is a second year student piece of work where they work with Village magazine, where they had to produce illustrations to accompany articles around Brexit. This was published in Village magazine, as was this piece on another article around Brexit. We have a variety of styles within the illustration program. We do not have a house style, so you'll quickly notice as you watch this presentation that everyone has got a different aesthetic. Everyone draws in different ways, creates in different ways, creates aesthetics in different ways, tells stories in different ways. So we're not about, which a lot of illustration courses are, we're not about imposing a style like this is the way to draw, this is the way to illustrate. We support you with the skill set you bring, and we help develop you as a communication designer, as a problem identifier, a problem solver, using the tools of drawing and bringing it to a level of aesthetic excellence. Again, very different style of illustration. Sophie really interested in humor, telling jokes through drawing and illustration. I would say what resonates to me about this image, although it's not the intention, is Sophie saying no college means no college work. I would say college means no work. As in, when you go to art school and you learn a creative practice that will afford you the opportunity to go and make a living doing something you love, you never work a day in your life. You simply are an illustrator. You simply are a graphic designer. You simply are a motion designer. It's a lifestyle choice. Work is not something you don't want to go to. Work is something you cherish. You want to do it every day because it's within you. And that means for the rest of your life, you do something you love. And it's an amazing gift that you can give yourself. It's an amazing space to exist within. That every day you produce and create and do things that you have a genuine passion and love for. And that brings an income in as well and allows you to live in this crazy world. Here's a piece by a student who was looking at kind of procrastination. For anyone that will end up coming to NCAD, this will become a very familiar sight. This is the Red Square, albeit this is pre-COVID, so there's no social distancing going on, and we would hope we can get back to something of this nature in the coming year, certainly by the time you guys come towards the end of 2021. This is a piece of work by student Gavin Connell that was published in the Irish Times to go along beside a piece of New Irish Writing. We've been working with the Irish Times 3-4 years. The New Irish Writing has now moved to the Irish Independent. The last Saturday of every month, you will see an illustration from a current NCAD illustration student. Gavin has gone on to build a very successful practice as an independent design professional, illustrating all sorts from album covers to music promotion to t-shirt designs to zines to posters, which won awards. This one here for the COVID posters, which was done in aid of to raise funds for Women's Aid. You may notice some of Gavin's work like this here, which he produced for the HSE. He did a whole series of posters, essentially looking at drug taking from a health perspective. So if young people are going to take drugs, then how can you promote that they look after themselves better? It's a great series of work he produced for them that you can see at drugs.ie. Another piece of Gavin's here, you know, very particular kind of style, skill, quite graphic in its approach, humor, you know, punch in the face kind of aesthetic. You can see how stuff like this exists on t-shirts and hoodies, how it would fit quite well in certain genres of music. But Gavin is doing very, very well, and he's only 2 years out of art school. This is from Beijing, very different approach. Beijing is very much into painting on an iPad. She's interested in narrative and storytelling, interest in the city and spaces. These pieces here actually won quite a few awards recently in the Irish Design Awards. Here's some of plans for books that Beijing made. It all folded up, so it starts with larger buildings getting smaller and smaller and smaller, but telling the kind of narrative of the street. The illustration students also work on that Powers project with the graphic design students with very, very different approaches. Some clever stuff happening here. You know, this student has illustrated the ingredients that come from the field that go into making a whiskey, a Powers. So the whiskey is on the inside. So this is what's outside in the fields that's brought to the distillery and then is distilled inside to produce the Powers. So it's conceptually relevant work. A big focus on that within the department. This is another piece that was done for Powers that Powers actually loved, but told us it would be banned by the Advertising Authority of Ireland because you're not allowed to show people have too much fun when enjoying whiskey, or these guys may be crying down here, you wouldn't know. The illustration students also, like all our students, access to letterpress printing facilities. They work with type, they learn type there, but they also work with printing techniques like lino, and pretty much anything you can get to type height will be printed in that facility. They produce portfolios of work each year that commemorate some memorable event of the year. This year was 2017. It was 100 years since the October Revolution in Moscow or in Russia, and students produce work that was inspired by that. These portfolios are bought every year by some of the main collecting libraries in the world, Harvard, Yale, you know, UCC and Cork. They're bought by private collectors. So our students, what I'm getting at by showing you all of this work, are published illustrators by the time they graduate. So they have a body of work and a CV. That means they're industry ready because they're already in the industry. They learn through the industry. Hashtag winning. Our students win loads of awards that I alluded to and still do every single year. They win awards at the International Society of Typographic Designer, the Royal Society of Art Student Design Awards, the Irish Creative Advertising and Art Direction Society, the Adobe Design Achievement Awards, D&AD, considered the Oscars of Design. Create Ireland, that student I showed you, Sana, that produced the plates for the Palestinian diaspora, just won a big grant from them. The Institute of Designers Ireland, we have lots of students on that shortlist. So, if you're looking at this presentation, we want you to engage with the presentation. We want you to look at the links that are going to accompany this presentation. Look at the moving image design work, the motion graphics, the animation work. We want you to submit a portfolio to come and study at NCAD. We want you to show us that you deserve a place on one of our programs. We want to see that you have the fundamentals of art and design practice, that you can draw, that you can think, that you understand some theory. A lot of what your art teachers are doing with you already. We want to see a little bit of who you are in your presentation. We want to see what you're interested in, what you care about, what issues are important to you, how you engage with the world around you, what you read, what you consume, what music you listen to. We want you to think about how you can tell us about who you are and who you want to be as a creative and how we can facilitate that. some of our social media handles that you can learn a lot more about our programs, and scroll down through, look over what's been happening over the last year and previous years. We have 4 Instagram pages. We have NCAD Design, which is the overarching communication design page. We've got one for graphic design, moving image design, and illustration. And I would implore you to look at ncad.works, where you'll see the graduate showcase from this year. Students who worked in very challenging times that went fully online towards their degree showcase and have produced fantastic work and have gone on to win numerous awards, both nationally and internationally. Thank you for your time. Make sure to look at the links that are going to come with this presentation that will be posted, I assume, on the website beside this. But take time and engage with them and enjoy them. Thank you very much. Take care. We look forward to seeing your portfolios when they come in.